here at the 2010 OneMedForum in San Francisco. Now I'm joined by Chris Calhoun, the CEO of Cytori Therapeutics. Thanks very much for joining us, Chris.
Good, thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I think probably the best way to start this would be just a brief overview of what Cytori Therapeutics is, what they do.
Thank you. Well, what Cytori's done is we've spent the last 10 years and over $200 million developing a point-of-care system that is able to take patients' own fat tissue and extract out their own stem and regenerative cells. And then physicians can use these cells for a variety of things, everything from heart disease, breast cancer reconstruction, to incontinence, and among many other things.
This system, the solution system, I mean, it's in clinical trials currently, but it also has applications today. Can we touch on some of the applications that it's being used for?
Yeah, the first application that the technology is being used for is for breast reconstruction after cancer, as well as for breast augmentation, for just natural cosmetic augmentation. And if we look at the applications for breast reconstruction, you find women that have what's called lumpectomy. So they take out small part of the tissue that's affected by the cancer, but most of these lumpectomy defects are not reconstructed. There's really no therapy today that can reconstruct these defects. And so women are left with this deformity, and it's not only a cosmetic thing, but it's really an emotional thing. It can affect their lives and their confidence. It can be pain and tissue damage that's long-lasting. But by using this cell population, we can not only reshape the breast and give them back that natural, normal look, but also it helps to alleviate a lot of the pain that's associated there. And ultimately, this restores their confidence and it restores them back to their lives prior to the cancer.
Excellent. And where are these procedures taking place, and about an estimate of how many procedures have taken place so far today?
Yeah, to date, we've treated well over 1,000 patients around the world, predominantly in Europe and Asia, and that's growing. And I'd say that today, we're treating at least one patient every day in Europe and one patient every day in Asia. So, that number seems to be growing every single day. And it's not only for breast cancer and breast reconstruction, but a variety of things. But that's clearly the predominance of what's being treated.
Okay, let's take a look at what other applications this could be used for, the clinical testing that's going on. Do you care to touch on the Apollo trial and your Precise trial that's currently going on?
Yeah, so along the pipeline, really probably the most significant disease that the cell therapy has promise for is in cardiovascular disease. So if we look at cardiovascular as an indication, it's the leading cause of death in the Western world, and it has been for the past century. So even with all of the advances in medicine today, really cardiovascular disease is still a major, major problem. And what we're doing is we're looking at two facets of this. One is for patients that immediately have a heart attack, so-called acute heart attack. And we can take a small amount of fat tissue, process it through our system, and safely deliver it into their heart through the coronary artery within 24 hours of a major heart attack. This is an incredible thing. And the results of an initial study that's already determined to be safe and feasible will be out later this year. And then we'll go into a pivotal approvable trial so that this can be really broadly available and treating patients within the next three years or so. For chronic heart disease, this affects probably 20+ million patients around the world. We've picked a subset of chronic heart disease called chronic ischemia, and we're treating them in a similar way. We take the fat tissue, get their cells, and then we use a special delivery system to inject them into the sick part of the heart, not the healthy part, not the dead part, what they call the ischemic part, the part that's not getting enough oxygen, nutrition, blood supply. And we put these cells there to help revascularize that and to help revitalize that part of the heart to first prevent further degradation of the heart and death, but also to make the heart better so that they can do more things that they were unable to do before.
I guess looking back a little bit into 2009, the FDA came out with a decision to regulate your solution system as a device instead of as a therapy. I'm wondering if you could just touch on how that was such a win for your company.
Cytori has taken a novel approach to cell-based therapy. If you look at the platform and the whole portfolio of cell therapy companies, they take stem cells, which are rare in nature, and then they have to bring them to a laboratory to manufacture enough. So it's like dosing a drug. If you don't have enough aspirin, your headache's not going to go away. It's the same thing for regenerative medicine. You got to get enough cells. And just in nature, these are very rare cells. So the models out there for cell therapy really are around manufacturing cells and providing back effectively a drug, because once you manufacture them, you've effectively turned them into a biologic, and it's regulated like a biologic or similar to a drug. But what we do is actually, we're a device, so we have a tool that sits at the point of care. Doctor takes a small amount of fat, they run it through the tool, and they get the cells within an hour, but they're not really manipulated. They're not changed, they're not grown, they're not somebody else's, we didn't kill any embryos. They're the patient's own cells. And thereby, they're not manipulated. We're really, what's doing the work here is the device. It's getting rid of the fat tissue, it's breaking it down, it's concentrating it so that you get a nice rich population of stem cells. And the reason we're able to do that is because fat tissue, our source of cells, is the richest known source of stem and regenerative cells in the body. So we're able to get a rich source of cells in about an hour in an affordable way that's the patient's own cells to put them right back. So the decision that FDA had was critical because we could have been on a 12 or 15-year drug pathway as a biologic if we were manipulating cells, but they fully understood that really it's the device doing the work. Therefore, we're going to be regulated as a device. So we have an application in front of them now for what's called a 510K. We have predicates that are out there. We're saying we're similar to these predicates and we would like to have clearance based on these predicates. And we're waiting for FDA to come back and either give us that clearance or say that we need some clinical data to support the claims. But in any case, we're probably in the 1 to 3 year window to be available here in the US instead of a 10 to 15 year window.
Fantastic. I guess just as kind of a recap and touching back on, decisions that the FDA, pardon me, needs to make, as well as the 2 trials that are going on. As an investor, what kind of major catalysts or milestones can we probably expect to see through the end of 2010?
Really, there's 4 key catalysts that I think you're going to see. First is top line revenue growth. So it's a marker for how is this technology adopting in a brand new emerging field. This is a market that's been unserved. Really, there's nothing else like it out there. We're the first mover here, so there's building momentum. And that's going to be measured through our annuity sales. So we have a device that goes to one-time sale, but there's a consumable that is used for every patient. So every time there's a new patient treated, they buy a consumable. And those increasing consumable sales are reflective of how this is being adopted into practices and in the market. So I think that's going to be a key driver. We're going to see growth in 2010. Mm-hmm. Then there's a couple big milestone events. There's data from both our chronic heart trial we talked about and our acute trial. And so those are going to be important things. And then ultimately the regulatory clarity for the US. We're approved in 59 countries around the world. We've sold into 22, but we're not in the US yet from a clinical point of view. Mm-hmm. And so getting clarity from FDA, whether the 510K is acceptable or we need some small clinical trial on top of that, or a broader IDE PMA-based trial, the clarity of that will come sometime this year and ultimately define what our timeline to the US market, which is a very major event for us.
Great. Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, thanks for taking the time.
Again, that was Cytori Therapeutics. If you'd like more information, their ticker symbol is CYTX. You can visit them online at cytoritx.com. Also, information can be found at OneMedPlace.com. Thank you.